Ballin Basketball Show, WNBA playoffs preview. Let's get it. We're going to be watching highlights as I discuss all the matchups. Also, like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me your, playoff predictions. Who you think's going to go all the way? So, we're going to start with Minnesota versus Valkyries 1-8. So, I feel like the Lynx gonna go all the way because I think chip on their shoulder of that letdown in the finals last year is gonna really motivate the team. But we'll see what happens. Shout out to Collier because she could win MVP. She's the second player, 50, 40, 90. Elena Deladon. She's been balling, second in the league in scoring with 23. I love the Lynx depth, with Williams, McBride, Smith, Heidemann. Shout out to Heidemann, and the stud buds. And I really love their passing. They got the third highest in W history with 23 assists. And they own two of the four best, assists per game seasons, 2024 and 2025. I do think they're going to struggle with some size matchups where, guards are bigger or the post players are bigger, because they did struggle in the finals with that against the Liberty. Um, I do, I do love, they're like, you know, 37% from the three. They have a good offensive rating and, you know, they average the most points per game in the NBA with 86. But I think they're only, they're the only bad thing about them is like the size. But if they, can, overcome that, I think everything's gonna be good. Also, with the Valkyries, shout out to the Valkyries because, I was not expecting them to have the season that they had. Being the first playoff, being the first, expansion team to make the playoffs in their inaugural season. Shout out to them. Their coach is up for Coach of the Year. I hope she gets it. But what's great about the Valkyries is their elite defense. They got they got one of the best defensive ratings in the league. They're great with the zone. They're great with the aggressive help D. Very but also I think the shots at the rim, they really wall off the rim. Really wall off the rim against teams. Only 18.1% of opponent shots came at the rim this year, and that's the second lowest clip since 2009. And the Aces in 2008, they had 14.6. But I really do love that their hope drives are really great and second in the league. Their only downfall, I think, is their scoring. Oh, let me show you another highlight. Their only downfall is their scoring. Like, I really like Veronica Burton, who's up for most improved player, but that's only like 12 points per game. They don't really have like a superstar that can give them, a lot of great points, They have a lot of great depth, obviously. Carla, you know, Robert, Tiffany Hayes, Billings, But overall, they struggle with coming up with buckets. Game is about buckets. They have a bottom five offense, scoring just 78 points per game, fourth fewest in the league, and is shooting. They shoot like a league worst with 41% from the field. That's not good, but they do hold teams to the fewest points per game, just 76. But overall, I really love what they did, this year. And they have, they scored the most 3-pointers made, in the league. And that's really good. But overall, we know that the Lynx is gonna, go far and beat the Valkyries. Aces versus the Storm. This is 2-7. And I really, really like the Aces, and you know, they're a championship team, veteran group, so of course they're gonna get their act together. They started off with 500, and then they end the season on a 16 game winning streak, only third in W history. During that run, the Aces in Asia, their numbers improved. Asia with 26 points, 12 rebounds, 2 blocks, 52 percent. The Aces 88 points per game, 10 threes made per game, 22 assists. Um, the win margin was incredible. You know, I think Nicky Hammond got them, rolling, but also, you know, Kelsey Plum was a big, big, huge, subtraction. So they had to get their act together with that. I like them getting Smith. Um, with the Storm, I love that the fact that they lead the league in steals, and with 8 steals, they a- they average 5 blocks, 17 points off turnovers. You know, they score in the fast break tremendously. However, when teams force them into the half court, they lack the shot creation, especially after trading away Joel Lloyd. Their non-transition situations are ranked ninth. That's last in amongst playoff teams. And in late game situations, when the game slows down and there's 5 minutes left and the game is within five, they struggle so so much. They lost like 9 games by 5 points or less. I think they're better than their record. They're also better on paper. In transition, they're elite. They score second most points per possession in transition. But like I said, they need to find that score, because even defensively, I mean, I love it. Izzy, the Skyler, Gabby, right? Mecca Wnba. I really like their core, but they're gonna have to figure out how to score. Hey, Aaron. But Aces are gonna win this series. So it's just a matter of how many games is it gonna take. Let's go with the Dream versus Fever. I really like the Dream, their dynamic duo, their guard play with Alicia Gray and Howard. Their bigs, Griner and Jones, and them getting them in the off season. They won 15 out of their last 18 games, won 6 in a row, and they really did well. I really like Carl, their first year coach, embraced a new identity, shooting threes more, at an inside outside game. They're averaging 84 points. Um, and they really improved, their offense, from last year. And they have the best defense in the league. Their depth is key with Howard, Canada, Hillman, who is like a good 6 woman of the year. They got Caldwell, and they're one of the best shooting teams in the league with 9, made threes this season compared to last season with 6. And of course, the post up players with Griner and Jones and Hillman, they're good. The question is, can they match up with the best? I feel like they're gonna beat the Fever. It's just a matter of how many games is it gonna take. But unfortunately for the Fever, their season's been plagued with injuries. But Boston and Mitchell, they've been balling, balling, balling. And now it's like the Dream is gonna have to contain Mitchell in Boston and try to limit the others, right? They might try to take the ball out of Mitchell's hands, right? the Fever do have a better net rating in the clutch, which is good. So if Atlanta is not balling, they can get one. Feel like Kelsey, great, made great history, Fever history, you know, 20 points, highest in Fever history, passing Tamika Catchings, you know, only player to have three straight 100 threes made per game, 3 seasons in a row. She's just balling. She made the most 3 pointers in Fever history. She was just balling. Unfortunately, they just been plagued with injuries with Colson, Cunningham, Bibby, McDonald, and especially Clark Wright. They had got Sims, Petty, and Powers to help. Fortunately, they can't defend without fouling. They're inconsistent defensively. They rely too much on Mitchell, and their guard wing depth is lacking. So I think if they have a healthy season next year, it's going to be better because they obviously are well coached. But so I really believe that the Dream is gonna, win this series. They also have the second most efficient offense, and they doubled their wins last year. So they're just balling, balling, balling. They have the most threes, 200 made threes, the most by any duo. Shout out to them. Let's go with the 4 and 5 matchup. You got the Mercury with Liberty. Phoenix, I mean, they haven't won a playoff game since firing Sandy Rodello, which I think is kind of interesting. There's a lot of interesting things here. Sandy used to coach, the Mercury, and obviously, you have the Sabali sisters, so I think it's pretty, these are some interesting things. So I really like that they surrounded, AT, the engine, with a lot of shooting, more than she had with the Sun. And, 7 players average at least one 3-pointer made, which is good. The only team that can match that is the Valkyries. And AT is career high shooting 53%. And of course, 8 triple doubles, which is a WNBA record. Shout out to her. And so they don't sacrifice size for shooting. They have 4 starters. And plus, Dewana Bonner is kind of a starter as well. That's all 6'1" or taller, which is very tricky if you have smaller opponents, right? Smaller teams. However, they dominated lower seeds. Can they dominate higher seeds? So obviously, the Liberty, they're the reigning champs. Lower seed though, because the Liberty, even though they're the reigning champs, they had injuries and consistency problems this year. And of course, sometimes when you win a championship, you're tired or you already won. So sometimes you rest on your laurels, maybe, sometimes, right? I really like that AT set, a W record with uh 357 assists. I think her and Caitlin Clark are gonna just go back and forth throughout their whole careers with assists. Second highest ever with 9.1 assists. And obviously when, AT does the whole triple doubles thing, they're like 71 in those games. And now the question for, you know, Phoenix is like, okay, is Bonner, Fatu, and Copper going to be enough to defeat reigning champs? Reigning champs, man, they have everything. They have everything. All they gotta do is be, you know, consistent. Pretty getting Cloud was wow, such a blessing. Also, Emma, getting hurt was like wow, the rich get richer. It's like crazy, right? The Liberty assisted 73% of their field goals, right? And that's the highest rate in the W. And, they could be the fourth team to win back to back titles. Only the Comets, Sparks, and Aces were able to do it. The Comets did it four times, obviously, but they're great at passing the ball. And the thing is, they are a super team, right? They have two MVPs, right? With Jones and and Stewie. They also have all these 3-point shooters, and they have a bench, and of course they have a great coach, and of course Sabrina and Escu, you know, continues to improve on passing, and they don't really care who scores. Also, if you notice, no one could contain Cloud. She had all around game. She can rebound, right? She can pass. She could score. Kalia Copper couldn't stop her. Hey, I rhymed. And Kalia Copper is one of the most athletic players in the league. And even she couldn't stop her. But Liberty, even though they're the fifth seed, they are a super team that just got richer with the Cloud trade and getting Emma, who a lot of people don't remember. Emma is a finals MVP. In a champ. Let's not forget. And so I honestly think that it's going to be the Liberty versus the Lynx once again. It's going to be a rematch. And it might come down to the role players and the depth in the bench once again. Because Fee is going to do her thing and the stars are going to do their thing. But it's like the bench or the role players. Wow. Right. Sagali. Uh, Leon. Right. Wnba, right. Or Williams, Heidemann, Smith, you know, all those, you know, they don't get as much attention as Sabrina and Fee and Stewie, right? So I think that's what's gonna happen. I want your guys' predictions of awards. The MVP, I honestly don't know who. I really don't know. I don't know who. I don't know who's gonna win these awards. I really don't know. MVP is going to be hard. Defensive Player of the Year, even Most Improved, Alicia Gray and Burton and Stevens is going to be hard. These are just some of the numbers for all the matchups, which I thought is pretty cool to see, like the breakdowns of like the matchups, but also what I liked is they showed you like the highlights of like what was so great about each team and what was so great about different players and different teams. Just like they gave you a little glimpse of like, and the playoff experience is awesome. You see the Liberty and Aces have the most, then the Lynx, then the Fever, then the Mercury, then Atlanta, then the Valkyries, then the Storm, which is interesting that the Storm has the least amount of experience and Valkyries have a little bit better. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, also, these are like the announcements of each award that they're gonna announce. Like Rookie of the Year, Sportsmanship, Coach of the Year, all that. I thought that was cool because sometimes you always wonder like when are they gonna announce it? When are they gonna announce it? Well, they gave you dates, which I thought was pretty cool. But let me know if you guys really like the way I did this preview, showing the highlights of the games. If you guys really like that part. Once again, like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your bold predictions. Let me know who you're rooting for. And also, remember to stay ballin'.